Translation. I love this translation because it always has the titles and it's easy to read. The dangers of the last days. You should know this, Timothy. In the last days, they will be very difficult for people who will love only themselves and their money. Tell me that's not happening right now. They will be boastful and proud. Tell me that's not happening right now. They will scoff at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. They will betray their friends, be reckless, be puffed up with pride, and love pleasure rather than God. Tell me this is not going on right now in this country. Tell me that's not going on right now. What's going on with all these political figures and everything? All they care about is themselves and making money. They don't care anything about the people in the country. They don't care about the poor, the people that have retired and worked all those years to get their social security and to get their insurance and everything like that, their Medicare. They don't care. All they care about is making money and being in control. Exactly what this says. What? Puffed up with pride. We can continue. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Stay away from people like that. And it's got an exclamation point. It definitely says, stay away from people like that. Stay away from people like that. Stay away from people like that. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that will make them godly. That means they're rejecting. I don't care if you call him Yahusha, Yeshua, Yahusha, or Jesus. They are rejecting him. That is the power that could make them godly. And it says, stay away from people like that. That's like at least 90% of these so called Christians out here. Verse 6. They are the kind who work their way into people's homes and win the confidence of the vulnerable women who are burdened with the guilt of sin and controlled by various desires. Tell me that's not going on right now. You got these religious leaders out here making these women who have past sins, like for instance, maybe they've gotten an abortion or something like that, making these women feel guilty, like they're never gonna, like Yeshua will never forgive them. They prey on the vulnerable. At least 90% of these Christians, so-called Christians, they're not really Christians, they're fake Christians. 90% of these churches out here that worship not Jesus, not Yeshua, not Yahusha, they worship leadership. They pray for leadership. They prey on women. They prey on the vulnerable. And it says these teachers oppose the truth just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses. So let's look at the Amplified version to get a better context of who Jannes and Jambres was, because they are from the book of Exodus. So verse 8 from the Amplified version of the Bible, Amplified translation, says, just as Jannes and Jambres, the court magicians of Egypt. So these were the two guys that worked for Pharaoh. So remember in Exodus when Yahuwah sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh to tell him, let my people go. These magicians were doing the same things, that the miracles that God, Yahuwah, told Moses to do. So this information can be found in Exodus chapters 7 and 8. I'll read a few verses for you. I won't show it on the screen, but I'll read a few verses for you. This is from Exodus chapter 7, verse 8 through 12. So it says, then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Pharaoh will demand, show me a miracle. When he does this, say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down in front of Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. Right? So verse 10 says, so Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did what the Lord had told them to do. Aaron threw down his staff before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh called his own wise men and sorcerers. So that's Jannes and Jambres. This is verse 11. Then Pharaoh called his own wise men and sorcerers. And these Egyptian magicians, Jannes and Jambres again, did the same thing with their magic, right? They threw down their staffs, which also became serpents. But this is the kicker. This is what happened. It says, then Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Pharaoh's heart, however, remained hard. And that's what happened, for a long time. Every time they would go and do a miracle, his heart would remain hard. And he had this Jannes and Jambres. These were two of the Egyptian magicians there that were opposing Moses. Everything that he did, they would come back and try to do the same thing or whatever, until like at the end, they basically could not come up against Yahuwah. And it says, so these men also oppose the truth. Just like, go back to verse 5. These same fake Christians, they oppose the truth. They have depraved minds. They're unqualified and worthless as teachers and in regards to the faith. Fake Christians. The ones that claim to be Christians, the ones out here. Let's go back to verse 5. So back to verse 5. Again, they will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. And it says to stay away from people like that. So verse 8 is basically collaborating what verse 5 is saying. And then it says in verse 9, but they won't get away with it for long. Someday everyone will recognize what fools they are, just with Jannes and Jambres. If you go back into Exodus, what I was reading, everybody gonna realize how foolish they are when Aaron's staff swallowed up their serpent. It says they threw down their staffs, which also became serpents, but then Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. That's verse 12, Exodus 7, chapter 7, verse 12. That's making them look like fools every time. Like Pharaoh would call them out there and tell them to do something, and every time they would do something, like Yahuwah's gifts made them look like fools. And this is what's going to happen to these fake Christians. Now let them keep on doing what they're doing. This is proof that we're in the last days. I mean, it's like every day you see some foolishness going on. They think they're going to get away with it, but it says it right here, verse 9. But they won't get away with it for long. Someday everyone will recognize what fools they are, just as with Jannes and Jambres. So in summary, just stand back and watch the salvation of Yahuwah. That's it. That's all. You can stand on it. All this foolishness that's going on in this country, the United States, aka Mystery Babylon, just stand back and watch the salvation of Yahuwah. As long as you keep your eyes on Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus, Yahusha, whichever one you like to call, watch the salvation of Yahuwah. That's it.